Whenever you're ready.
All right. So, the focus of my speech is going to be on increasing domestic usage by military, which would in turn reduce crime levels. So I'm going to start by telling a story, fairly recent, about the Washington Naval Yard shooting. A man by the name of Aaron Alexis, who was considered delusional, walked on to the Naval Yard at about 7:53 a.m. with a fake ID. Started shooting up the place, killed 12 people and wounded 4 people. He was not stopped until 9:25 a.m. If there were more military personnel stationed, he might have been stopped sooner and not killed anyone, perhaps. The 3 points I'm trying to get across in this speech is that crime is still rising in America, and it's probably not going to stop without any kind of interference. 2, police, they're not really winning the crime war in some places, most places actually. And 3, it has been proven to work in the past. So, start off by talking about Detroit. Detroit, my mom grew up there. It used to be, thriving city. There were jobs, families, schools. Now, it's nothing little more than a war zone. Houses are on fire, people killing other people, mugging at gunpoint, etc. And statistics show that in the past year, car thefts are up 83%, robberies are up 50%, burglaries are up 20%, and property destruction is up 42%. And even in Illinois, the lawmakers over there are suggesting that they send in the National Guard to calm down Chicago, because they're just going crazy over there as well. 58% of local and state law enforcement agencies throughout the U.S. say that violent gangs were active within their areas. Okay. And police, they do try their best, and they're supposed to be the peacekeepers, but they're not necessarily winning this fight. A quote from Dr. Patrick Sweeney says, "We have a whole generation of human beings within this urban area who could be so productive and helpful to humanity, but are lost." Now, this was a quote from about drugs, but who deals drugs? Gangs, of course. So, and then the gangs are killing all these innocent young guys and girls because they're all trying to compete, and they're killing each other as well. They're all trying to compete for clients who are becoming fewer, or probably now are increasing. And if we implemented military usage in these parts, not necessarily we have to have direct, at first, I think we should use the military to give the police knowledge, because they have combat training, and they've actually seen what it's like to be in an actual war zone. So if police had that knowledge, then maybe that would help them be able to fight off all the gangs and whatnot. Because the gangs aren't using RPGs, or they're not flying planes, armored tanks, etc. We have to change one law in order for this to actually go into effect, which is the Posse Comitatus Act, which says that a United States federal law that was passed in June 18th of 1878, and is to limit the powers of the federal government to use military action to enforce state laws. But, like I said, it has been known to work in the past. President Grant used the federal military to he used it throughout the South to maintain law and order while the Ku Klux Klan was going around a rampage, persecuting blacks and Democrats. And another event was Little Rock. The first day, those 9 black kids showed up to school, and they were muted by a white mob, and even the Arkansas National Guard, and they couldn't go to school that day. President Eisenhower, after this went on for a little bit, he decided to send in the 101st Airborne Division, and with the help of the Airborne Division aiding the black students, Ernest Green became the first African American to graduate from Central High School. Now onto a more recent event. In Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, that's where they're gonna host the 2016 Olympic Games, I believe. That's a crime-ridden city. Gangs, militias, the whole works. Nothing about the same as Detroit. So they realized that in order to host these games, they need to clean up the crime in the area. So, first thing they decided to do was tackling the gangs in the favelas, which are like the slums. They sent in heavily armed police forces, and military personnel. And it was a little bit controversial at first because of the brutality that's being used, but in the end, it came out all right. Let's see, a 27-year-old hairdresser said that before we were never at peace when we sent our kids out of school, but now it's a lot safer. She could actually have a business and her kids can get a good education without having the fear of being beaten or mugged. So with this, I have shown you crime still on a rampage, and police, now let's say, aren't doing their job, but they do need a little bit more help in the matter, and it can work. Yeah, thank you.
You don't have to stand there for that. But you do, once again, have to be really careful.
I can do that.
All right, John, I think you sort of bury the claim right at the beginning. Although you do a pretty good job laying out what the secondary structure is going to be, you sort of rushed over what the opening statement was. As you go along, it becomes clearer and clearer that you are an advocate, and you're in essence saying that the use of the military would be an effective way of fighting crime. I think that's a fair summary or paraphrase of what the claim is that you're making. And it should be that clear at the beginning, and I didn't think it was. At the end of the speech, I thought it was a little bit clear, and I thought your summary helped that a bit. The information about the Navy shipyard just seemed like, or the Navy Yard just seemed like I wasn't quite clear how that was relating to the point that you were making. As you got into the argument about places like Detroit and Chicago, and then you related back to the military, it became a little bit clearer. It's all very speculative at this particular point. You need to show, for instance, that the police agencies are unable to respond effectively because of limit on their manpower or their technology or their strategies, and I think that you really haven't done that. You've just shown that obviously that there are problems in a couple of pretty bad places. The question is, would military intervention there make a difference in those particular places? And is it a practical thing to do? The only evidence that you have that is direct to that is the experience in Brazil, and then plus the experience that you have more than 150 years ago when General Grant used it. The example with Eisenhower is a little bit awkward because it's a very specific situation. It's not like people were hiding and conducting gang activities. It's, they're trying to get the kids into the school, and they're dealing with the Alabama authorities and the Arkansas authorities. It was Arkansas with Eisenhower, the Arkansas authorities at the time, and I think that that's a very different situation. I'm not sure that you can reason very effectively from that. The Brazil experience, I think, is a little bit more useful, but the only proof that you have from it is a quote from a resident sitting there, and that seems to me to be a little bit thin as proof for committing the military to places like Detroit or Chicago as a way of intervening in gang warfare that's happening there. I thought you did an okay job speaking to the audience. The summary, I think, really was the effective way that you finished off the argument, because it did remind us much more clearly than the opening what the point was that you were trying to make. All right, thank you.